Welcome back to Absolutely Marvel at DC. My name's Benny, that's Sal, and that is King Garibaldi III talking about one of the crazy theories in the Marvel Universe. And right here at AMD 107.3 on the hot spot of the hee-haw shock jock of the world.
Nobody ever give Benny a soundboard.
No.
It won't end well.
He had one for a while. I remember.
I did.
You went nuts on it. Yeah.
Anyway, guys, today we're doing another theory discussion, and we are going to have the theory discussion that every Marvel fan wants to avoid.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Steve Rogers. We're talking about original Captain America. Mm-hmm. He took all the Infinity Stones, went back in time, put all the artifacts back, and then didn't come back. Is it an alternate timeline that he stayed in? Or did he ignore his duty and ignore all the other heroes for 80-something years?
Right. Right.
My question is, did the creatives behind, the writers and probably mostly the writers of Endgame, did they care?
They do care because there's... Oh, good.
Well, I was going to say, and this is why I brought this up again, because it recently popped back up. Apparently, we're going to get answers in Loki, because I guess... one group in MCU, in like Kevin Feige's camp, says he went to an alternate timeline, and the other group says no, he was in hiding for 80 years.
Right. Yeah.
So the question, like, this is why this is a hot topic in the MCU, because there is no definitive answer.
Right.
Yeah,
well,
that's
the
the problem.
script writers and the directors both have two different beliefs.
Yes.
So there's no authority. Feige hasn't said like, yeah. Like
the script, I think it's the script writers that say it was a different timeline, and the Russo brothers say he hit out. Is that what it is?
I don't remember what the difference is, but I know that
I think so. Because I remember the Russos saying something like, "It doesn't matter," or like, "Whatever," and the writers were like, "No, well, timeline."
No, it does matter. I wrote it.
Yeah. I'm like, okay.
So, I know I made a video way back when the movie came out, and I said it kind of ruins Captain America's character that he would just, after all of the speeches, just sit and wait. And I think there's a funny skit on YouTube made by Warp Zone that shows like a guy acting as Steve Rogers, and like Sharon's like, "Oh, this is going to be a great day. I can't wait for this to happen." And he's like, "Don't go to that." I think at one point
funny.
she's like, I think they made like a 9/11 thing, like the World Trade Centers are doing amazing,
God.
and he's like, "Don't visit, don't visit."
I think if we do want to talk about like authorial intent or whatever, I believe someone at some point also said like a reporter was like, "Captain, why would he just sit and do nothing?" And someone was like, well, "Who says he did nothing?" So like,
right,
yeah,
it's possible he was still Captain America and he just got old.
Right.
I like the idea in my head that he is in the current timeline. We don't need to fracture this any worse than it is. But that he was working behind the scenes as like Nomad. Like he was, there were things bigger than these issues. You know what I mean? Like that's how I look at it. And when it comes to the big Endgame fight, he could still show up. Like you could easily write in why he wasn't at the big events because he was doing other things that would have been far worse.
Oh,
and
so
it's so easy to write that idea.
So you're saying that the Captain America that we see in Endgame from the Endgame point forward is the one who went back in time and is now caught back up with himself?
No, but that would work too. He just
I don't
takes
think
over.
that would work. Wanted to clarify.
What I was saying is like if he's working as Nomad in the background, like let's say Winter Soldier, maybe Bucky set a bomb that was going to blow up a ton of buildings and Nomad took care of that. Well, Steve took care of the normal stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like Sokovia. Oh, yeah, Sokovia was bad. But what you didn't know about was that Ultron had a much worse plan going on that Nomad was a part of.
Right.
And then even in Endgame, you can be like, oh, look at all the soldiers came out. And he just was in a Wakandan outfit. Like, I'm here too.
Yeah.
I assume it's some kind of time loop. Because, like, where does the... Because the way that I've always rationalized it in my brain, if I have to think about it, and the movie tells you don't, because they're not concerned with it. It's just like, that's not how time works. Move on. Who cares? Even though that is...
like, if you are going to do a time travel story, then you
To give
are
them the ending
interested
you want.
in it.
Yeah.
Like, if you're... Then you can't be like, oh, don't worry about the calories. We're just going to eat this entire pie. Like, but you're eating a pie.
Right.
You're
Right, but we're not
electing
going to worry about it. Don't worry about it. No,
I-
we're fine.
I appreciate the stance that Endgame takes, where it's like, because my problem with time travel, I just hate time travel in general, mostly because of the like little like butterfly effects that happen.
Sure.
I prefer the reality that the MCU seems to be taking, that it's not butterfly effect, it's just alternate universe stuff. So
Uh-huh.
the writers can do whatever they think they should happen.
Yes.
And whatever you little fan thought was supposed to happen happened over there in an alternate universe.
Right.
The problem with what happened at Endgame and why this debate is happening is that the Russo brothers did state it's the same timeline. Now, as they made an easy excuse in the MCU for time travel. If you alter it, you make a branch. Like
Right.
that's the excuse.
Well, except isn't it really the theory that like the only time you create branches is if you remove an Infinity Stone from the timeline?
That's what the Ancient One said, but I also think the Ancient
that's a
One
terrible
didn't
explanation.
know. Yeah. I am of the belief that all of the explanations of what would happen in Endgame, including Bruce saying if we return it back,
Yeah.
it would fix everything, I think all of that is nonsense. I think none of that is actually what happened.
Except we dedicated screen time to it. Like the film told you that's the answer. So like you can't be like, well, obviously that doesn't make any sense. So the characters are just saying that for our benefit. Like no, they were saying it for our benefit because that's part of the narrative and they believe it and therefore it's true. Like therefore it is fact in the
Right.
film. Like the movie is saying these are the reasons why things happen. Like
I think there's also enough in the movie, hence this discussion, to cast doubt on that, though. Because there's Loki slipping back in time, and we're going to get a bunch of that in the
Yes.
Loki show. There's Cap being old, which brings up this question entirely.
Yes.
Right. I
There's-
mean, but what if Cap being old happened in the alternate timeline and he just kind of bounced back to hand off the shield and
Yeah.
then went back?
Like if we take the Infinity, let's take the Ancient One at their word because they are 1,000,000 years old and they are and they're magic. Like that they should know.
Sure.
Like if anybody's gonna be an authority on time travel, it should probably be the magic sorcerer,
Agreed.
who by the way has dominion over the Time Stone. But that being said, if we're gonna take her at her word. Let's assume that the Infinity Stones are the only removal of Infinity Stone equals branching timeline, and that's it.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then theoretically, what could happen is Steve took all the stones back, but one, remained in his branched timeline where the shield didn't get broken, grabbed it, and then when he was old, I assume after Civil War when, Sharon's, or when Peggy's dead, he then returns the stone to where it needs to go, and then immediately is shunted back into his original timeline.
So this is
So it's
like a what's that, the Hickman Avengers comic where he has the time stone and he's floating through time.
Right.
It's like that.
I guess, yeah. And in his timeline, it's because the idea, if she says if you take it away, it creates a branching timeline, but if you put it back, it fixes everything, which doesn't
Right.
make any sense. Because well, what if I take this Infinity Stone, kill my own dad before I'm born? No. Just but you put the magic rock back, so it didn't so it's all better. And it's
It corrected, man. Come on.
corrected? What, he didn't die? But if Steve just I'm gonna hang on to one of them, one of the less important ones. You know what? I'm gonna hang on to I don't know, the one from Guardians of the Galaxy,
Sure.
or the one from Thor Ragnarok, because who
I was
cares? Or
gonna
not
say
Thor
the one in
Ragnarok,
Guardians of
Dark
the Galaxy was the Reality Stone. That's not the less
World.
important one.
That's the
It's
Power
the
Stone.
Power Stone.
Oh.
Reality
No,
is
the
the
Reality
Thor, the Dark
Stone is
World
the
one.
yeah, Thor: The Dark World, where no one
Ether.
cares.
No.
So he hangs onto a stone until Peggy dies. And then he's like, okay, I'm ready to go back. I'm 1,000,000. I'll put the stone back. Blink. He comes back and he's like, oh, cool. And you get to keep the stuff you were wearing? Because that also works.
Does
the
it-
end game. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say. So you're saying that was an alternate timeline shield. If that
has
were
to
the
be.
if that were the alternate timeline shield, does that then give credence to why we have two shields at Falcon Winter Soldier? 'Cause
Yeah.
we had two at the end. We had two.
Well, we only had two because, John made one.
John just made one out of his
Yeah, there's
scrap
two
metal
shields.
in his garage.
There is technically a shield. There's technically a broken shield somewhere. I guess in New York State somewhere under a bunch of crap, and the nice one. And the nice one I think came from an alternate timeline because the thing is, I don't think the Wakandans made another one. They're not like,
No.
oh, cool. I
think
remember
they
making
care.
that 70 years ago. Let's make another one for you. No. I feel like he had to go to an alternate timeline where there was no, where the shield, he didn't go back in the ice, or maybe he did and he grabbed it, where there's no Avengers and everything. Like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah, I honestly think they don't like the way that they set it up. They just don't want you to think about it until they decide to make it a story.
yeah, the Loki show is going to really answer a few of these questions.
Well, and
I'm
that's
sure
why,
it will.
That's why we can only have this rambling thought pattern for like
Right
2
now.
more months.
Yeah, exactly.
I also think-
exactly.
If we're gonna give credence to the Ancient One, like knowing how time works,
Right. Even though she doesn't, by the way.
She's
she's
ancient.
terrible at it.
because well, here's the thing, like Bruce Banner comes along, who's not thousands of years old and doesn't control magic, and it's just like, yeah, but what if we put it back? And she's like, whoa, I never thought of that.
Yeah, and it's like, you have the time stone. You deal with time travel all the damn time. You're using it right now to keep yourself from being old. Oh, wait,
Right,
isn't she, or is
it's like-
she using dark magic? Doesn't matter. Doctor Strange
knows?
is not very good. But
The point is, like,
I'm here to bargain. I'm here
time
to bargain.
travel
That was
sucks,
fun.
and it's messy, and this is why you don't do
Yeah.
it. But I think Endgame made some interesting choices in the writing to try to get the audience not to care about the effects, and I think it worked in the context of its own movie. But now that we're like a year or two out from that movie, we're starting to ask questions. We're starting to wonder what's
right,
going
well,
on.
because we've seen it a few more times, and we're like, wait a
Right.
minute. I think that's bullshit.
It's the same thing as the what happened to the people that got blipped back? Seeing Endgame, you're like, they're all back, and now it's 2 years. And at the time, we're like, that's cool. And 2 years later, we're like, wow,
They gotta
there's a
deal
lot
with
of
it.
ramifications for
Yeah.
half the population returning
Right?
out of the blue.
Yeah,
We've
Spider-Man's
got-
like, yeah, it's a joke.
Now we've
half
got
the
the
kids
Flag
came back.
Smashers. Come on.
Yeah, now we got Flag Smashers out of it. Yeah, lucky us.
Nobody wants them.
No, I
So,
don't know, man.
The
Yeah.
question I have now is then, are we in, because we also have the 2 Thanos timelines,
Yeah, what?
Iron Man got rid of him.
Yeah, he unmade him, so he'll never come back in time. Like,
I think so.
So Thanos, like, you killed Thanos from like what, 7 or 8 years ago? Does that mean that he'll like, because he doesn't exist? Like, I mean, I assume that Tony, like, he, because he snapped his fingers, he didn't say anything except Iron Man. So like, he must have thought it. Where he's like,
Yeah.
I wish that Thanos didn't exist, but his non-existence didn't affect the timeline such that
Yeah.
it would actually literally prevent this whole experience from happening.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's because if that version of Thanos didn't go back, then Endgame doesn't happen.
Right.
Then there's no shield.
If you want to talk about like ripple effects and butterfly effects, which the movie tells you not to, but you,
Yes.
like you said, Sal, you kind of have to.
Well, and it also, like, it invites the discussion by making
Right.
them.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, especially
but
this,
I
where they're
think-
like, where it's just like, oh, evil Thanos is back. What do you mean he's back?
What?
I think the I don't know, the Iron Man having the entirety of the gauntlet with him when he made that decision, he could have very easily just snapped Thanos away and like put him back and erased his memory of Endgame's events, so he would
Right.
go on to just do everything as he would have.
Sure.
And caught up with himself and died at
Yeah.
the beginning of that movie.
Yeah.
So it's, that doesn't bother me. The Captain
Okay.
America stuff is more because like that's post, like he does have stones, so maybe he did do something.
Yeah.
Maybe there is a story where he went back and he put the gauntlet on and was like, hey, make it so everything's okay. And then he snapped his fingers and then he put them all back.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
also, and the radiation won't melt me. Like,
Right.
Okay, I'm going to give
Captain
you
America.
another what the hell moment. Think about this. Okay, so we've got alternate evil Thanos back there. We got Steve Rogers traveling through time to go spend time with Peggy Carter, and the whole crux for like 90% of this entire movie is we can't wish it back to before because I'll lose my daughter. That was
right.
Like everyone had little things here and there, but for the most part, it was Tony. That was the big thing. Tony Stark did not want to go back.
Yep.
So if by your theory, he's reverting the evil Thanos back to his timeline so that everything can pan out, right?
Yep.
Why didn't he wish everything back to before Thanos arrived?
And his daughter gets to stay.
Yeah, but my daughter and wife, we remember everything.
Right.
Wouldn't that have made more sense?
Yes.
But then Tony Stark would be alive, and we can't have that.
Yeah. Well, because why didn't he like?
And I will
'cause he
die as
knows-
well.
He knows if I snap, like it'll like blast me half to death. Like,
Right.
I wish that happened, and also I had a shield that protected me. Oh wait, I already have one of those. Let's just ignore that.
That's the issue when you write something that can, do anything into your
Anything.
story. It's
Yeah.
like, you kind of just have to accept that it has rules that shouldn't really exist, but they do because otherwise you don't have a story.
Right. I'm fine with the rules.
I'm just saying, like,
right.
he could have snapped. He's still going to die. He was dying either way.
Yep.
That was the one destiny. Reverses everything, fixes the timeline, daughter's alive.
Right. Yeah. Everything goes
the-
back in time 5 years ago, and it's just that he didn't. Yeah, that's more messy.
Yeah, I think it's just it's less interesting to me too, because like if we didn't get the reality that we're in now, where it's this huge tragedy has happened to the entirety of the MCU, then we
Yeah.
wouldn't get like interesting shows like WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier and certain
Right.
things that happen in Far From Home. Like that is such a cool comic book status quo change
Yeah.
that if they did just decide to revert back to before Infinity War, then
Yeah.
like what's the point? What was the point of those two movies?
My
That's
only
true.
problem with your argument, my only major problem is I think this was more done for the gut-wrenching, this will be cool. Because
Yes.
so far, Falcon Winter Soldier, Far From Home, and WandaVision have not done a very good job of explaining or showing anything from that period. They keep hinting, ooh, it was messy. And that's about all we get.
I think the only problems I have with that is in Falcon Winter Soldier where that is a plot point where because
Right.
the Flag Smashers' motivations are they want to go back to the way things were before, but like in WandaVision especially, like the scene where we see Monica in the hospital, like, and everyone's just like freaking out and coming back, like that is the stuff I'm interested in, where I don't really care about the time period where everyone was dead. I'm
Yeah.
interested in the effects of how that affected people afterward when everyone came back.
I'll bet whatever we say, Loki is going to be like, okay, so all the rules we set up in the last movie, no, forget all that. Actually,
Gone.
like they've had 3 years to think about it. And so now they're going to be able to have like Owen Wilson snarkily like throw away every podcast's theories about it. Like, of
course.
the fact that they're leaning into the multiverse theory, like the fact that like we're going to get multiple Spider-Man, the fact that Doctor Strange has a multiverse in and of itself, the fact that like, you're playing with the What If show, they're gonna go with multiverses, which means they're gonna be like, no, the Ancient One was wrong. It's not about removing a rock. It's about making crazy decisions in the past, and like everything they did in the Endgame movie created branching timelines. And actually, they're all part of a rich tapestry of alternate branching timelines that already existed from other characters that went back in time, or just the multiverse theory in general. And so let's look at some of those wacky places too. Look, Marvel Zombies.
Right.
Oh, like I really feel like they're going to be like, no, actually throw away all your theories because it's just a multiverse.
I just hope that we get some kind of definitive answer from Loki, because right now it's a theory that it's going to correct everything or at least explain
Yeah.
it all. Because one thing I always liked about the MCU was that we didn't have all these crazy multiverses and timelines. It was linear. That
Yeah.
was it. It happens. It's cool. We don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Part of, and this is a discussion for an entirely different show, and we could have a whole discussion with this another time. But part of the problem I have with comics versus like manga and stuff like that is how impenetrable they are, because they'll be like, here's 5 Batman books. These 2 are out of continuity. This is a what if. This one's in continuity. This one kind of is, but ignore it. And then you're like, where do I start? Any of those. They're all fine. No, that's not the right answer. And I feel like if we're getting to that point with the MCU where it's like, okay, everything up till Endgame, one complete story, it's great.
Yep.
After Endgame, here's path 1, path 2, path 3, path 4. And we're getting like,
It's getting muddy.
I hope it doesn't get muddy.
Yeah.
part of the reason I think the MCU has been doing so well is they have taken that linearity of, and we've only got a few things we have to question. You know,
Yeah.
like, is Cap in this timeline or a different one? And it's a fun discussion.
Yes.
It's not a problem discussion.
Right. And I'll take
So-
that.
That's why I'm hoping that this is going to be resolved in Loki, or they're going to correct it, or they're going to be like, this is the timeline, this is what's out of it, that's it.
They
Like-
love their rules. I'll bet Loki will not necessarily answer every question, but they'll let you be able to do it by being like, these are the rules that we are going to abide by as far as
Yeah.
multiverses and timelines go. So, you know, we're going to show you a couple of examples to establish baselines, and but for the most part, like, it's up to you. You know, like, we're going because of Evan Peters and all the other stuff. I feel like we're going to get windows into other movie franchises through Loki. Like, we won't have Tobey Maguire show up in Loki, but I feel like we're going to see like snapshots from movies that Disney now has access to that they didn't before.
Aliens.
No, not Xenomorphs. I'm talking about like Marvel movies. I'm talking about like the X-Men, you know, and be able to, like, you know, look at a deleted scene or an alternate shot of Patrick Stewart as Professor X, like looking over his shoulder, like, what? You know, normally he's
Yeah.
like looking at Wolverine, giving him a hard time, but in this context, it's like, you know, it's not just is old Cap in a utopian timeline. It's the multiverse equals all the other movies and stuff. And so they're just like, but we're not going to say that outright. We're going to let the audience put, like, you know, connect those dots.
Interesting. I would be surprised if they went that far with Loki. I think
Me too,
most of
but-
it's going to be self-referential,
Yeah.
and just kind of having fun with the idea of the multiverse, which I think, like, I kind of agree, Benny, to an extent, where it's like, you know, every comic book property eventually goes multiverse, and it's kind of getting exhausting at this point, where that is just like, you know, eventually everybody gets here, and it's like, you don't need to, though.
Yeah.
Like, it's like the Ultimate Universe was great up until it wasn't.
Yeah.
And a huge part of that was because of the multiverse.
To end this discussion, what I'm just hoping for is that this does not turn the MCU into the DCEU,
Yes.
where they just go, and everything's on its own unless you don't want it to be.
Right.
We-
Birds of Prey,
Right.
Suicide Squad, The Suicide Squad, Batman, The Batman, Man of Steel, Justice League, I don't know, Joker. how
Shazam's
about-
got Man of Steel in it. Did you like that? Like,
Yeah,
I
Shazam
don't-
had Man of Steel, had the costume, but not the face. and it's like, and you know damn well no one's thinking about it.
Right. And I hope it doesn't turn into that where it's like, all right, cool, multiverse is open and we can do whatever the hell we want.
No, you can't. You can't just do whatever the hell you want. You have to. They arbitrarily made it so they had, like, Thanos had to close his fist to access an Infinity Rock. That's like rule creation at its most pathetic and also most necessary. Where they're like, if he gets this. The Infinity Gauntlet comic is a metaphysical, like, you know, conversation about reality and nihilism. The movie is not about that. It's about cartoon characters punching each other. And it's like, if he gets all the rocks, it's over. We need rules. So it's like he closes the fist. He accesses a rock. We see, like, the parallel. The characters can fight him as a result because he needs to close his hand. Like,
Yeah.
Marvel's pretty okay at, like, creating these, like, silly but necessary rules. You need to adhere to that, especially when it comes to this, to a rat's nest of problems that you were going to create with a multiverse.
Yeah. And especially when the MCU itself, like, its success is founded on the like grounded interconnectedness of its movies. So
Yeah.
I'm glad we're taking a break from everything being so connected in ways that could get exhausting, but you're gonna have to come back to that at some point, because otherwise you're gonna lose focus and it's gonna become a mess.
Agreed.
Yep. All right. Well, that's the end of today's theory video. That's the reason we named this one the topic. The topic no one wants to talk about is because this is what happens.
Yeah, none of us had a good idea. Like, none of us
Messy.
had, like, a solution.
No, and that's just it. This is why no one ever talks about this theory.
That's right.
All right, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed today. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching Absolutely Marvel and DZ. Stick around. We'll be reviewing Black Widow, all the new shows such as MODOK. The CW shows are starting to make their road. What do you give me that face for?
I'm like,
MODOK?
Black Widow didn't come out. We didn't see Black Widow.
But who knows when they're going to watch this? It might be soon.
Couple months.
I don't know.
It's
Oh
great.
yeah, it's July now. I keep thinking May.
Yeah.
I keep thinking
No.
the original May date, not
Yeah,
the July
no.
date.
We'll get there.
Well, maybe they'll watch this in July.
Let's hope.
Thank you guys. We'll see you next time right here at Absolutely Marvel at DC.